Zara walked slowly through the dusty path of the village of Saurin. Her eyes were dry now. She had cried all night, but no more tears would come. Her husband Rahim had died 3 days ago. They said he fell from the cliffs while hunting, but Zara knew her husband. He was careful, strong. He never would have slipped like that. Something felt wrong, but no one wanted to hear her. The villagers had changed overnight. Women who once smiled at her now turned their backs. Men avoided her eyes, children whispered and pointed, and worst of all, the elders called her to the central square and made her stand alone in front of everyone. "You brought misfortune," said Elder Karim. "Your husband died because of your bad luck. His spirit is restless." Zara couldn't believe what she was hearing. "He died in the mountains. You said it was an accident." "We said what was necessary," Elder Mera said sharply. "But we know the truth. His death brought darkness. You must leave." "I have nowhere to go," Zara whispered. "Then live with the ghosts." Another man muttered. No one stood up for her. Not her neighbors. Not even her cousin, who looked away as she begged with her eyes. They took her belongings out of her house and threw them into the dirt. A small bag of clothes, a worn scarf, her husband's old book, that was all she had. Now, the sun beat down as she walked toward the hills alone, betrayed. Her feet ached, but she didn't stop. She wanted answers. She wanted to reach the cliffs where Rahim died. Maybe she'd find something the others missed. Maybe she'd find peace. The wind howled as night fell. Zara built a small fire and sat against a rock, shivering. Memories of Rahim filled her heart. His laugh, his strong arms, his quiet words. He had loved her deeply. She was sure of it. He would never leave her like this. Then she heard it. Hoofbeats. Slow, rhythmic. Coming closer. Zara stood up quickly, heart racing. From behind the trees came a figure on horseback. A tall man, cloaked, face hidden by a scarf and shadow. He didn't speak. He looked at her for a long moment, then climbed down silently. She stepped back, unsure. "Who are you?" she asked. No answer. He walked toward her, handed her a small water skin, and placed a blanket near the fire. Then he sat on a rock a little distance away and stared at the flames. Zara didn't know what to do. She wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, but something in his silence made her pause. Instead, she drank the water slowly and pulled the blanket around her shoulders. The man said nothing the whole night. When she awoke at dawn, he was gone. All that remained was a strange symbol drawn in the dirt near her fire, a circle with 2 arrows crossing through it. It looked familiar, but she couldn't remember why. Gathered her things and walked further up into the hills. The air was thinner here, the path narrower, and then she reached at the edge of the cliff where Rahim had fallen. She stood there, looking down. The rocks were jagged, the drop steep, but there were no signs of a fall. No broken stones. No blood, nothing. It didn't look like a place someone would fall. It looked like a place someone would be pushed. Zara's breath caught in her throat. Then she saw it. The same symbol, carved into a tree nearby. Faint, old, but clearly the same as the one the stranger left near the fire. She stepped closer, touched it. Why was this here? Suddenly, a rustling sound behind her. She turned, but no one was there. The wind blew harder. Zara's heart pounded. She felt eyes watching her. Though the hilltop looked empty, she picked up a stone and held it tightly. "Who's there?" she shouted. Only silence answered. She backed away slowly, her eyes scanning the trees. Then she turned and walked quickly back down the path. She needed to know what that symbol meant. And more than that, she needed to know who the stranger was. Why did he help her? Why was he following her? That night, she returned to the same fire pit. He was already there. She didn't ask questions this time. She just sat down. He passed her some bread and water again. And they sat, watching the fire, the silence between them filled with unspoken thoughts. Before dawn, he stood up to leave. Zara reached out and grabbed his arm. "Please," she said softly. "Did you know Rahim?" The man paused. Then he nodded. Once Zara's breath caught. "Did you see what happened to him?" He looked at her. His eyes were dark, full of something heavy. Then, for the first time, he spoke, his voice low, rough, like it hadn't been used in years. "Not yet," he said, "but I will." And then he mounted his horse and rode away into the mist. Zara sat frozen. What did he mean? How did he know Rahim? And why was he helping her? She didn't know the answers. But deep inside, for the first time in days, she felt something. Strange. Hope. Yet, as she prepared to sleep again, a question haunted her. If someone had killed Rahim, who else in the village was hiding the truth? And how far were they willing to go to keep her silent? Zara woke before sunrise. The coals of the fire still glowed faintly, and the silence of the forest felt heavy. She sat quietly, holding the last piece of bread the stranger had left. Her thoughts were scattered, chasing the few words he had spoken. "Not yet, but I will." What did he mean? What was he searching for? And how did he know Rahim? She stood up and looked around. The air was cold, the sky gray. She wrapped her scarf tighter and made her way back to the path that led to the village. But she didn't go home, not yet. There was something she had to check first. She remembered the symbol the stranger left, a circle with 2 arrows crossing through it, and how it was carved into the tree near the cliff. It stirred something deep in her memory. She had seen it before, not recently, but long ago. She just couldn't place where. As she walked past the fields near the village, she spotted the old well. Next to it was an abandoned prayer hut, barely standing, its wood eaten by time. It had belonged to her husband's grandfather. Rahim used to go there often when he was troubled. She had always wondered why. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust danced in the light beams. Cobwebs covered the corners. But on the far wall, behind the crumbling shelf, she saw it. The symbol, faded but clear. The same one. Her heart thumped. This wasn't just a drawing. It was something Rahim had known, maybe even been part of. A secret group, a message she didn't understand yet. Suddenly, she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned, startled. An old woman stood in the doorway, her eyes sharp to spite. Her age, it was Bibi Gul, one of the oldest in the village. "You shouldn't be here," Bibi Gul said in a low voice. Zara stepped back. "Do you know what this symbol means?" The old woman looked at it and hesitated. Then she pulled something from her shawl and handed it to Zara's scarf. "Stained with blood?" "This was Rahim's," Zara whispered. "He came to me 2 nights before he died," Bibi Gul said. "He was afraid. He said he had found something he shouldn't have. What was it? I don't know. But he said if anything happened to him, I should give this to you." Zara stared at the scarf. Her hands trembled. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I was afraid," Bibi Gul whispered. "They're watching. The elders. They know. More than they admit." Zara took the scarf and held it tightly. "Thank you." As she stepped out of the hut, Bibi Gul touched her arm. "Be careful, child. You're closer to the truth now. And the truth is dangerous." Zara walked away, heart pounding. What had Rahim found? What truth had cost him his life? That night, she didn't return to the hills. She stayed near the edge of the village, hiding in an old storage shed. She needed to search Rahim's belongings. Her house was locked, but she knew how to get in. She waited until dark. When the moon was high, she climbed through the back window, careful not to make a sound. The house was cold, empty. Dust covered everything. Her heart ached as she looked around. This was once her home. Now it felt like a stranger's place. She searched Rahim's books, his old chest, even the floorboards. Nothing. Then she remembered the space behind the old cabinet. Rahim had once hidden a birthday gift there for her. She pulled the cabinet aside. There was a small wooden box hidden in the wall. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside were papers, folded letters, some old photographs, and a small journal. She opened the journal and began to read. Rahim had been writing about something for months. He mentioned meetings in the forest, strange men near the borders, whispered rumors of weapons being smuggled through the mountains, and then names. Familiar names. Elder Karim, Elder Mera, even her cousin, Farid. Zara's breath caught. Rahim had discovered something huge, something that connected the village, elders to illegal activities. Then she heard it, a creak outside the window. She froze. Someone was there. She quickly grabbed the journal and stuffed it into her bag. She didn't have time to take everything. Another creak, a whisper. She moved quickly, out the back, through the trees, silent as she could be. She didn't look back until she was deep into the hills again. The fire pit was cold, but she sat there, waiting, hoping the stranger would return, and just before dawn, he did. He rode slowly, as if he knew she'd be there. Zara stood as he approached. "I found something," she said quickly. Rahim knew he was watching the elders. He kept notes. He died because of it. The stranger said nothing. She handed him the journal. He flipped through it slowly, his eyes sharp, focused. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. He nodded once. "Enough to bury the village in shame. Then we have to show everyone." He closed the journal. "Not yet. If we do that now, they'll destroy the rest of the evidence." "What do you mean?" "There's a cave," he said slowly. The sun had not yet risen when Zara and the stranger began their journey to the North Hills. The path was narrow, filled with thorny bushes and loose stones, but neither of them spoke a word. The only sound was the steady beat of the horses' hooves and the rustle of Zara's footsteps beside him. The journal rested inside Zara's bag, close to her chest. Every now and then, she touched it, as if it gave her courage. They reached a small ridge where the valley opened wide below them. From there, the stranger pointed toward a distant line of dark trees. "Beyond that forest," he said, "there's a stone wall. Behind it is the cave." Zara looked at him. "Is it guarded?" He nodded. "Not by men, but by silence. If anyone saw us there, they would know what we're after." They continued in silence until the trees swallowed the path. The forest felt older than time, and the air grew cooler. Birds flew low, quiet. Every branch seemed to whisper, "Ani." They reached a wall of stone half buried under moss and vines. At first it looked like just another part of the hill, but when the stranger pulled aside a thick curtain of ivy, Zara saw a narrow opening, carved into the rock. "This is it," he said. They lit a small torch and stepped inside. The cave was dark, cold, and smelled of earth. Their footsteps echoed as they walked deeper. The walls were damp. Strange markings lined the side symbols like the ones Zara had seen before. Suddenly the stranger stopped. He knelt beside a flat stone and began brushing away dirt. Zara stepped closer. Beneath the dust lay a wooden chest, locked with iron. The stranger pulled a key from around his neck and opened it. Inside were bundles of papers, photographs, and a small tape recorder. Zara reached in and picked up one of the photos. It showed Elder Karim standing next to a group of unknown men, one of them holding a rifle. "This is enough," she whispered. "This proves everything." The stranger nodded. Rahim collected all of it. He planned to expose them. "Why didn't he?" Zara asked. "He was waiting," the man said. "Waiting for the right time, but they found out. They acted before he could." Zara looked at him. "And now we act." Before the stranger could reply, a loud crack echoed from outside. They froze. Another sound, a sharp crunch of footsteps on dry leaves. Someone was out there. The stranger quickly closed the chest and grabbed the torch. "We need to go." They moved fast, following a different path that led to the side exit of the cave. It was narrow and steep. Zara slipped once, but the stranger caught her hand. They didn't stop until they were far from the cave, hidden behind thick trees. From their hiding spot, they saw them, 2 men, armed, searching near the cave entrance. Zara whispered, "Do you know them?" He nodded grimly. "They work for Farid, my cousin." Her voice cracked. "He's not your cousin anymore," the stranger said coldly. Zara looked down. Her heart felt like it was tearing open. She remembered how Farid used to play with her and Rahim when they were children. How could he be involved in something like this? They waited until the men moved on. Then they circled back and returned to the hidden fire pit in the hills. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She sat close to the fire, staring into the flames. The stranger finally broke the silence. "Rahim knew what was coming. He told me he didn't expect to survive it." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "And still, he stayed. Still, he fought." The stranger nodded. "He believed in justice." She turned to him. "So do I." He reached into his cloak and handed her a folded note. "I didn't show you this before. Rahim left it for you." Zara opened the note with shaking hands. It was her husband's handwriting. "Zara, if you're reading this, I didn't make it, but don't let them scare you. You are stronger than they think. There's a truth hidden beneath this land. If we don't uncover it, more will suffer. Trust the man who brings you this. He's my brother in all ways that matter. Together, you can finish what I started." Zara held the note to her heart. She didn't cry. She couldn't. Her grief was now fuel. "I won't let him down," she said softly. The stranger looked at her, his expression unreadable. The next morning, they packed the documents and evidence into 2 small bags. They planned to bring them to someone outside the village, an old friend of Rahim's who once worked in the city as a journalist. But first, they needed a horse for Zara. The stranger said he'd ride ahead and secure the path. Zara would meet him at the edge of the eastern ridge before sunset. Zara waited until the village grew quiet before sneaking in. She headed to the stables near the grain storage. As she opened the gate, someone grabbed her wrist. It was Farid. He smiled, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "Going somewhere?" Cousin Zara pulled her hand away. "Let me go." Farid's smile faded. "You've been asking questions. Visiting old huts? Meeting strangers? That's not safe." "Zara." She stared at him. "You were Rahim's friend. How could you be part of this?" He leaned closer. "We do what we must to survive. Rahim forgot that, and now you will too." Zara didn't wait. She kicked him hard in the leg and ran. Farid shouted behind her, but she didn't look back. She raced through the village, through narrow paths, over fences, into the woods. Her chest burned, legs aching, but she kept going. She reached the eastern ridge, breathless and afraid. But the stranger wasn't there. She looked around. The sun was almost down. Shadows stretched long and thin. Then, from behind the trees, came a sound, soft, distant hoofbeats. Relief flooded her. But then the sound grew louder, closer, faster, to many hooves. Zara's heart dropped. It wasn't just one rider. Someone had found them. Zara backed into the trees. Her breath caught in her throat. The hoofbeats thundered. Now at least 3, maybe 4 horses, fast and close. She pressed herself against the trunk of a large tree, trying to stay out of sight. The saddlebags with Rahim's documents were heavy on her shoulders, but she clutched them tightly. Branches cracked. Shadows moved through the trees. Then she saw them, riders in dark clothing, their faces covered with cloth. One of them was Farid. Zara held her breath as they passed just meters away. Her heart pounded like a drum in her ears. She prayed they wouldn't hear it. "We'll search the ridge," Farid shouted. She can't have gone far. Spread out. The men split into different directions. Zara turned and ran. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. Her legs screamed, her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. Not until she reached the dry stream near the outer forest. She dropped to her knees, panting. A hand grabbed her arm. She gasped and swung the bag. "Zara, it's me." It was the stranger. She nearly collapsed in relief. He pulled her behind a fallen tree and listened. "They're here," she whispered. "Ferdy knows." "I saw them," the stranger said. "We need to move. Now." They mounted his horse, Zara clinging to the saddle as they galloped deeper into the woods. The wind tore at her hair. Her eyes stung, but she didn't dare close them. Every second counted. After half an hour, they stopped in a small valley, shielded by thick trees and hidden by mist. The stranger dismounted first and helped Zara down. The horse was sweating, its chest heaving. "We'll rest here a few minutes." he said. They won't find this place easily. Zara nodded, wiping her face with her scarf. I thought I lost everything. I thought I'd never get out. You're still standing? He said, sitting beside her. That means something. They sat in silence for a while, the air cold and still. Then Zara opened the journal again. She turned the pages slowly, trying to understand what Rahim had risked everything for. One page caught her eye. A sketch drawn quickly, but detailed. It showed a map of the village and the surrounding hills. A red cross marked a spot labeled only as Kilowatt. What's this? She asked, handing it to the stranger. He studied it. Khil Watt. I haven't heard that name in years. It was a place our fathers used when they wanted to meet in secret. It means the hidden. Could the rest of the evidence be there? He nodded slowly. If Rahim used the cave to hide part of it, he may have used Kilowatt for the rest. Zara stood. Then we go there. The stranger looked at her, something shifting in his eyes. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, she said firmly. They took everything from me. My husband, my home, my safety. I won't let them silence his truth. He smiled, just slightly, then stood. All right, we go. They traveled through the night, avoiding main paths, staying low, silent. By dawn, they reached a place marked on the mappa, rocky hollow beneath a steep cliff. Vines covered the entrance and moss crept up the stones. The stranger knelt and cleared the vines. Behind them was a small wooden door, almost invisible. He pushed it open. The inside smelled of damp earth and age. Dust floated in the torchlight. As they stepped in, boxers lined the walls, old-worn and untouched for years. They opened the first one. Inside were rolls of parchment, old letters, even ledgers with hand-drawn maps and trade routes marked in red ink. Zara picked up a piece of paper. It had a list of names, dates, and money transfers. These are bribes, she whispered. They've been selling weapons for years, using the village as a cover. The stranger read over her shoulder. This is more than we thought. This could take down the whole council. Zara looked at him. Then we take it to the city. Someone has to listen. He hesitated. You know they'll come after us. If we're caught, they won't spare us. She met his eyes. I'd rather die knowing I tried. They packed the papers quickly, bundling everything into cloth sacks. As they stepped outside, a sharp crack rang out. A gunshot. Zara dropped to the ground. The city loomed ahead, larger than Zara had ever imagined. Stone buildings rose like mountains, their windows glowing with early morning light. Narrow alleys ran between them like rivers, and carts rumbled along the cobbled roads. People moved fast, with purpose. No one looked at anyone else. Everything was in motion. Zara clung to the stranger's arm as they moved through the crowded streets. Her scarf was pulled tight around her face. Dust clung to her skin, but she didn't care. The weight of Rahim's papers rested on her back, heavier than ever, but full of purpose. We're close, the stranger said. He led her through a side street into a quiet courtyard. At the far end stood a modest house with wooden windows and peeling paint. A rusted bell hung over the door. The stranger knocked 3 times, then paused, then knocked twice again. Moments later, the door opened. A thin man in his 50s stood there, hair silver, eyes sharp behind glasses. He looked at the stranger for a long second and then smiled. Faintly, I was beginning to think you were dead. I was, the stranger said. Until Rahim died. The man's face turned serious. Come in. Inside, the house was quiet. Books and papers covered every surface. Old cameras sat on dusty shelves. The air smelled like ink and tea. The man introduced himself as Imran, a retired journalist who had once worked for a major newspaper. Rahim and I shared more than just tea, he said. We shared enemies. Zara handed him the journal and the sacks of documents. Imran flipped through the pages with trembling hands. This is everything. Names, locations, transactions. If we get this to the right people, we don't want to go public yet, the stranger said. Not until we're safe. Zara looked at him. But we have to tell the truth. We will, he replied. But if they know where we are, they'll come. We need protection first. Imran nodded. I still have contacts. People who hate corruption as much as Rahim did, but it'll take time. We don't have time, Zara whispered. They're following us. They know we're here. Imran stood. Then you'll stay here. I'll get in touch with my people. By tomorrow, we'll have a plan. That night, Zara slept in a room with faded curtains and a view of the city lights. She couldn't sleep. Rahim's voice echoed in her heart. His laughter, his courage, his final message. She sat by the window watching the stars. Somewhere out there, her home still stood, though it had turned its back on her. She wondered if the people would ever know the truth. Would they believe it? Would they care? Suddenly, a soft knock on the door. It was the stranger. I couldn't sleep, he said simply. Zara gestured for him to come in. He sat by the window, opposite her, staring out at the quiet city. Did you really love him? He asked after a long pause. She looked at him, surprised. Rahim? He nodded. Double quotes, yes, she said. With everything I had. He nodded slowly. He loved you too. I saw it in the way he spoke your name. Even when he was scared, even when everything was falling apart, it was always you he fought for. Zara's eyes filled with tears. He died alone. No, the stranger said softly. He died brave. They sat in silence after that. In the morning, Imran returned with news. I've spoken to a contact at the press council, he said. She's honest, respected. If we give her this, she'll make sure it's protected, published, and investigated. Can we trust her? The stranger asked. She helped me once, Imran replied, when no one else would. Zara nodded. Then let's meet her. Imran arranged the meeting for that afternoon in a quiet cafe near the center of the city. They dressed simply, hiding their faces with scarves and caps. The woman was already seated when they arrived. She looked to be in her 40s, dressed in black, eyes sharp and intelligent. Imran introduced her as Safina. Zara handed her the journal.safin. Flipped through the pages, then stopped. These names, this goes all the way up. Ministers, officials, military buyers. It's real, Zara said quietly. Rahim died for this. Safina looked at her. Then we'll make sure he didn't die in vain. Suddenly, a loud crash outside the cafe made them all jump. A motorbike skidded across the road, and a man stumbled out, bleeding. Then gunshots. Screams filled the air. Zara ducked under the table. The stranger grabbed her arm. They found us. Imran pulled Safina toward the back door. Come on. They ran through the kitchen, out into the alley behind the cafe. Bullets hit the brick walls around them. The stranger pushed Zara into a side path. They didn't stop running until they reached an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge. Inside, Imran locked the door behind them. Everyone was panting, shaken. They were waiting for us, Safina said. Someone talked. The stranger turned. To her? Can you still publish it? Safina nodded. Yes, but I can't do it alone. I'll stay with her, Imran said. We'll get it out together. Zara stepped forward. What about us? You disappear, Imran said. Just for a while. Once it's out, once the city knows, it'll be safer, for everyone. Zara looked at the stranger. He gave a slow nod. That night, as they rode away from the city on a borrowed horse, Zara held the last remaining copy of Rahim's final letter. She read it again, each word burning into her memory. Tell the truth. Even if your voice shakes. The wind was cold against her face, but her heart was steady. Somewhere behind her, the world was changing, and somewhere ahead, it was waiting for her. The road was long and silent. Trees lined both sides, their branches like skeletal fingers stretching toward the sky. Zara held tightly to the stranger as they rode through the empty hills. The city was far behind them now, its noise and danger swallowed by distance. But Zara's thoughts refused to rest. The images of gunshots, screams, and the sight of the wounded man outside the cafe haunted her like shadows that followed without sound. She closed her eyes and leaned against the stranger's back, listening. To the rhythm of the horse's gallop, she didn't even know his real name. After a while, he slowed the horse and turned off the main path. They entered a narrow trail between rocky cliffs, hidden from view. The air grew colder. Birds flew in silence above them. We'll stop here. For the night, the stranger said. Zara nodded. Her body ached, her head heavy with questions. He helped her off the horse, then led it to a small stream to drink. Nearby, a natural cave sheltered them from the wind. Once the fire was lit, Zara sat close to the warmth, hugging her knees. You never told me your name, she said softly. The stranger glanced at her from across the flames. I don't use it anymore, but you had one, she pressed gently. He paused. Then finally he spoke. Azan. Zara repeated it in a whisper. Azan, a call to awaken. He looked into the fire. My father named me that. He believed I'd be the voice that woke the silent. She looked at him, really looked. His eyes were tired but steady. His face held years of sorrow, but also strength. What happened to you? She asked. He was quiet for a moment. I was once like Rahim, he began. We trained together, fought together. We believed in justice, in protecting our people. But when the elders began to change, when greed took root, I spoke out, and they turned on me. Zara's breath caught. What did they do? They declared me a traitor, he said, banished me. Rahim tried to defend me, but they threatened him too. I told him to stay, to wait for the right time. Zara's heart ached. So you disappeared? I went north, Azan said, lived in silence, but I kept watching. When Rahim died, I knew I had to return. Zara stared into the fire. I wish I had known all of this sooner. He didn't want you to carry the weight, Azan said. But now, you're carrying more than he ever imagined. She looked at him. So are you. A long silence fell between them. The wind howled outside the cave, but inside, the fire crackled gently. What will you do when this is over? She asked. Azaan, single quotes SIs met hers. If it ever is. Zara didn't answer. The question had no easy reply. In the morning, they rode again north toward the borderlands, where villages were fewer, and people asked fewer questions. News of the published report hadn't reached them yet, but Zara knew it was only a matter of time. Safina and Imran were smart. If they survived the attack, they would release everything to the press, just as they promised. By afternoon, they reached a small hilltop settlement, just 5 houses, a well, and a worn-out mosque. The people there were kind, but cautious. An old shepherd offered them shelter in a small wooden cabin. At the edge of the cliffs, Zara stood by the window as the sun dipped low. Clouds rolled in over the mountains, painting the sky with gold and gray. This place feels forgotten, she murmured. Sometimes forgotten places are the safest, Azan replied. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She walked outside quietly and stood at the edge of the cliff, feeling the cold wind bite her skin. She looked at the stars and thought of Rahim, of the nights they spent dreaming of a better world, a life with peace. A child, maybe laughter, a home that loved them. Now she was left with memories and fire in her veins. Azan joined her without a word. He stood beside her, silent for a long while. I was going to ask him to leave with me, Zara whispered, after the harvest. I was tired of the fear, tired of the silence. Azan nodded slowly. He would have gone. He loved you more than the land. A tear slipped down Zara's cheek. They killed him for doing the right thing. He knew the risk, Azan said, and he took it anyway. Zara turned to him. And now we have to finish it. He looked at her, his voice soft. We already started something they can't stop. The next day the news finally arrived. The village of Zarak lay deep in the valley, surrounded by thick forests and shadowed mountains. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Smoke rose from a few chimneys, but the streets were empty. Zara tightened the reins of her horse, her hands trembling. Despite the warm sun, Azan rode beside her, his eyes fixed ahead. This is where they've gathered, he said. The last of them, Farid, Elder Karim, and the arms dealers who escaped the raids. Zara nodded, her heart thudding in her chest. How do we know they're still here? They think they're safe, Azan replied. They're waiting for someone to get them out across the mountains. We just have to get there first. They tied their horses behind a low ridge and climbed the rest of the way on foot. Azan moved silently through the trees, his body alert, his senses sharp. Zara followed closely, her footsteps careful, each breath slow. From a distance, they spotted a stone house on the far edge of the village, surrounded by tall trees. Two men stood at the entrance with rifles. Trucks were parked nearby, their engines cold. They're not leaving yet, Azan whispered. That gives us time. Zara pulled out the cloth pouch she'd hidden inside her coat. Inside were copies of the most damning documents, enough to prove the remaining council members were guilty. What's the plan? We split, as said. I'll draw their guards away. You sneak into the house, look for any papers, ledgers, devices, anything that connects them to the weapons trade. Zara's eyes widened. Alone. He looked at her. You've come this far. I trust you. She swallowed hard, nodded once, and slipped the pouch back into her coat. Azan disappeared into the trees like a shadow. Moments later, the sound of cracking branches echoed through the forest. The guards reacted instantly. One ran toward the noise, gun drawn. The other followed, leaving the house unguarded. Zara moved. She sprinted across the open clearing, ducked under a window, and slipped through the side door. Inside, the house smelled of smoke and sweat. Papers covered the wooden table. A satchel sat half-packed on the floor. She didn't waste a second. She grabbed the papers, stuffing them into her pouch. She found a black notebook filled with scribbled notes, payments, coded names. She snapped a few pictures with a small camera Azan had given her. Then she opened the drawer. Inside was a gun. She froze, hand hovering over it. Then she took it. Suddenly dashed footsteps. Zara turned, her pulse pounding. Farid stood in the doorway, his eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in rage. You, Zara raised the gun, hands shaking. Don't come closer. Farid laughed bitterly. You think you're a hero now? You think exposing us will change anything? It already has, she said. You're finished. Farid took a slow step forward. You won't shoot me. You don't have it in you. Zara held the gun tighter, fingers numb. Try me. He lunged. They crashed into the table, papers flying. The gun fell. Zara kicked him hard, scrambled to grab it. Farid grabbed her ankle, pulled her down. She kicked again, rolled away, and grabbed a heavy book. She slammed it into his face. Blood poured from his nose. He cursed, staggered back. Zara grabbed the gun again, and aimed. Don't make me do it, she said, breathless. Farid wiped the blood from his face. His smile twisted. You're just like Rahim, foolish, brave, and doomed. I'm nothing like you, Zara said. You sold your soul. I'm taking it back. Just then Azan appeared in the doorway. Step away, he barked. Farid turned. But it was too late. Azan knocked him out with the butt of his blade. Farid crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Zara dropped to her knees, gasping. Azan helped her up. You did it. She nodded, still shaking. We need to go now. They moved fast, grabbing every document, every note, every last bit of proof. They slipped out the back, unnoticed. The forest swallowed them again by nightfall. They were back on the northern road. A storm rolled in. Thunder cracked above them. But Zara didn't care. They had everything. Azan lit a fire in a small cave just off the road. Zara sat beside it, soaked but alive. Farid will wake up, she said. He'll come after us. No, Azan replied. He won't. She looked at him, and he didn't explain further. Instead, he unrolled the black notebook and flipped through the pages. This will be enough to bring down every last one of them. Zara stared at the flames. We've won, But Azan shook his head. Not yet. We've struck the heart, but the roots go deep. It's not just this village. Not just these men. Zara nodded slowly. Then we keep going. We finish it. He looked at her, a small smile breaking through his usual silence. You've changed. I had to, she said. The moment they buried Rahim, they buried who I used to be. He said nothing. Zara leaned back, closed her eyes, and let the sound of the rain calm her thoughts. Her hands were bruised, her body exhausted, but her spirit was on fire. In the morning, they would ride again. They would ride toward justice, toward truth, toward every village still held hostage by silence. Rahim's name would live on not in stone or memory, but in action. And in the woman who once walked away from her village, broken and betrayed. Now, she was the storm. Dawn broke slowly, casting a golden light across the hills as Zara tightened the saddle on her horse. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the scent of wet soil and scattered branches. She looked over at Azan, who stood by the fire, packing the last of the documents into his bag. His face was tired, lined with worry, but there was something new in his eyes. Hope they had enough now. Enough to take down the last of the names. Enough to bring peace to the villages that had lived in fear for years. But peace came with a cost, and Zara knew they hadn't paid it in full. Yet, are you ready? Azan asked. Zara gave a firm nod. Let's finish this. They rode west, toward a larger town where journalists, lawyers, and former resistance fighters had gathered after the leak. The roads were no longer empty. Whispers had spread about Rahim, about the woman who exposed the council, and the man on horseback who had returned from exile. Villagers along the way offered them shelter, food, water, and in their eyes, there was something new, belief. At midday, they reached the edge of the town. Azan pulled the horse to a stop. From here, we go in alone. On foot, too many eyes. Zara dismounted, feet hitting the ground with purpose. She pulled the pouch close to her chest and followed him through the crowded market streets, past curious glances and hushed murmurs. When they reached the old municipal building now used by local reformers, they paused at the steps. This is it, Azan said quietly. Zara looked up. We do it together. Inside, the air buzzed with energy. People moved between rooms, carrying documents, typing reports, speaking into phones. At the center of it all stood Safina. Her eyes lit up when she saw them. You're alive, she breathed. So are you, Zara smiled. Imran stepped forward from behind her, his face thinner but full of light. You kept your promise. Zara handed him the pouch. So did you. They gathered in a quiet room, the windows covered, the doors locked. On the table, Zara laid out the black notebook, Rahim's journal, and the last batch of documents. Names, places, weapons, routes, bribe ledgers, and recordings in deniable proof. Safina leaned over them, her eyes scanning every word. This is more than we ever hoped for. We want everything exposed, Zara said. No redactions, no half-truths. And protection for the villagers who speak out. Azan added. Imran nodded. You'll have it. They worked for hours organizing the files, cross-checking data, preparing statements. By evening, the press gathered outside. Microphones lined the long wooden table. Lights flashed. The town square overflowed with people, some from distant villages who had walked for hours to witness the moment. Zara stood behind the podium. Her hands didn't tremble. My name is Zara Rahim, she said into the microphone. I was a widow from a forgotten village. My husband died trying to expose a truth that those in power buried with threats, silence, and blood. But we uncovered it, and now we share it with all of you. Cameras clicked. Murmurs swept the crowd. This is not just my story, she continued. This is the story of every man, woman, and child who was told to keep quiet, who was told their life didn't matter. Today, we say, no more. She stepped back. Safina took over, laying out the evidence point by point. Names, crimes, proof. The truth unfolded like a tide that couldn't be stopped. Zara looked out over the crowd and spotted familiar faces, people from her village. Bibi Gul, the old shopkeeper. Even children she had once held in her arms. Some of them cried, some of them smiled, and one by one, they began to clap. The sound grew louder, stronger, until the entire square echoed with applause. Not just for the evidence, but for courage, for Rahim, for truth. Azan stood beside her, eyes fixed on the horizon. It's done. Not yet, Zara whispered. But we've lit the fire. The next few days moved quickly. Officials were arrested, borders were sealed, arms routes shut down. New leaders were called forward, not the powerful, but the honest. Zara returned to her village with Azan. This time, no one shunned her. They opened their doors. They filled her arms with bread and milk and tears. The house that had once felt like a prison now stood rebuilt by neighbors who finally understood her silence had always been strength. One morning, she stood near Rahim's grave, a single wild flower in her hand. I did what you asked, she whispered, and I'm still not done. She turned as Azan approached. He placed something beside the grave, a ring of silver, tarnished by time.